failure is actually way less risky from a long-term career and personal perspective than I think people are made to believe. But if you think about your career in 2 years, 3 years, you probably got way more learnings than you would have at kind of a legacy company that's moving a lot slower. So you're probably, smarter, more. So you've actually put yourself ahead by taking more risk. And I think the other thing too is a lot of people, by taking risk, end up riding kind of career waves that are tough to see from the onset but are more problem oriented. So if you're super passionate about something because it's just come into existence, even the individuals that spent time building ones that failed, yes, they just become way more knowledgeable of a rapidly growing industry, which is likely going to be long term more beneficial financially than if they just had decided to not follow that passion.
Get ready to be inspired, create the life you desire, and transform your dream into reality. This is Empowering Monday Podcast with Mark Le Dain.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Empowering Monday, your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration powered by ZRM Studios, a professional photo and video company. I'm your host, Mark Le Dain, and today we have a very interesting guest, which a CEO and founder of this company called Emissions Decisions. Hi, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Thank you for coming to our podcast.
Yeah.
So tell me how did you get started with this business, Emissions Decisions?
Yeah, I can talk about from a problem standpoint, see if there are any questions there, and then
Sure.
I can kind of talk about the career path, because I think that's probably interesting.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts trying to figure out my own career, so I assume it's probably similar for some of your viewers and listeners. If you think about kind of the problem statement for Emissions Decisions, you have all these individuals that want to make better decisions for the environment. And it's kind of an interesting thing where better, cleaner air, cleaner water,
That's right.
those actually pull really well amongst people from a consumer standpoint, from a political standpoint. Very few people are actually against those things, but there's really high friction in making better decisions to improve the environment, especially at the individual level. Some of them are more costly, but the ones that don't cost you anything, they're often tough to find. Okay, is this the product that's the lowest emissions in its category, or is this the best rooftop solar panel for my specific home setup? There's a lot of complexity to all those decisions that you may make as a household or an individual. And anytime you've seen that problem crop up, there's been kind of a platform that's existed to help you solve that problem. So I always like the credit card analogy, where credit cards were historically very difficult to find. It cost you a lot of money as a business to find customers. But these platforms cropped up, so Credit Karma, NerdWallet, Rate Hub, and all of them help you find the credit card that's a specific fit for you, because the one you want is a function of details that people don't know about you, and a lot of personal preference. So do you like travel? What's your income level, etc. That's going to mean a different fit for you than your neighbor. And environmental products are similar, but they don't have any of these platforms yet to help people, find the best product. Okay, what are the apps that can help me reduce emissions the most? What are the best providers for rooftop solar? What are the most efficient shower heads that use the least water? All these items, there's a percent of the population where that's going to be their number one purchasing criteria. Right now, it's very difficult for them to find those products, and so I want to set up an ecosystem to remove that friction, because that's a pretty easy way to kind of accelerate environmental impact without creating a lot of additional costs, without doing something new that's going to take decades. You can start impacting people today. So that was kind of the problem and the genesis that I set out to solve.
Oh, okay. There you go. So that's the main reason why you started this company then. And then, so how do you, like you said, how do you help people when it comes to, if they're having trouble with their gas and gas leak and stuff like that? So they just contact you and then be like, hey, we need to fix this stuff. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, so the main way people interact with it right now is there's a website, newsletter, and database. Similar to how a lot of these entities started for kind of other ranking platforms, or even a lot of the well-known consumer guides, like a Wirecutter, for example.
I see.
And what consumers can do right now is they can go and see products that we're highlighting. So we'll say, hey, here are a bunch of providers for an electric boat if you want to get a lower emission boat, for example. Or here are providers for lower emission roofing. Or here are providers for rooftop solar that we're highlighting. Or here are just environmental products ranked. So we've got a partnership with some data providers, such as an Arbor, for example, where they're already doing a great job of grabbing a lot of this data for ESG reports, sustainability reports, and then we're repackaging it so that we can show it to the consumer in a way that they understand, so that they can decide, hey, here's a shoe that has a lower emissions footprint than a comparative shoe, so I can decide to purchase that one instead, reduce emissions. And right now they're interacting us through those three mediums, but in the future we'll probably add additional mediums on top of that.
I see. So basically you're just trying to educate people to have like cheaper options out there and stuff like that.
Exactly, and that way they can rank by, okay, here are a bunch of products where I'm going to be able to reduce my consumer footprint significantly by choosing them instead of the alternative, and even take the action itself. A lot of these products have fundamental frictions. They're a lot of work for consumers to review and pick. I always like the rooftop solar example, where it's extremely difficult to get rooftop solar today. So you got to research all the companies. A number of them are contractors that may or may not still be in business that provide the installation. A number of them have expensive financing plans attached. You also have to apply for the grant or the rebate yourself, and you got to stage that in a certain way to qualify. That's a very difficult process for someone that's busy with their job or a family.
Exactly.
So even like providing them all that data and steps so they can remove friction, it's going to lead to more solar adoption, which is great, for our community, for our business, and then we can stack additional value propositions on top in the future.
I see. Well, that's very great. That's it's helping people, right? It's like trying to point them to the right direction, helping them make a decision in the right way and stuff like that. So it's awesome.
Thank you.
So obviously when you first started the company, how did you come up with this idea of helping these people?
I think a key way is just to, and this is something that anyone building a business can probably take a look at, is if you're passionate about something and you just review the main sources of friction inside kind of that, whether it's a consumer decision or a business decision, if you go through those major pain points, you can actually figure out what the real problem is that you should be solving with a business or service. And what I'd spent a lot of time on is, okay, there are all these great environmental products out there, because my background, I worked in finance and then tech, passionate about emissions reduction, and I kept looking at businesses to create, but a lot of them actually, exist and they're pretty good. Like you think about rooftop solar, there are a bunch of really good providers for that. If you think about battery packs for the home, there are a ton of great companies for that. And so you start going through that process and you read kind of the customer reviews on, these different businesses, these different products, and you realize that a lot of it is because there's too much friction for the consumer to actually, execute on that purchasing decision or adopt that product. And if anyone's building a business, you can go through. You can even view it from the company angle, where you can read through, Glassdoor employee comments, and people can be like, oh, it's way too difficult to sell if you work through this company. And you can read about employees complaining about how tough the sales process is. That probably means that, customer acquisition is their biggest cost. And if you can reduce that friction for them, you're actually providing them and the consumer a great service. Or you can read it from the consumer angle, Google reviews or any others. And you can see that consumers are saying, hey, I actually couldn't find the right solar provider, so I had a terrible experience. And I wouldn't recommend this one, but I've now heard that these ones are good. Okay, that actually makes it clear that it's a problem in finding the right provider, not actually getting a new provider to enter the market. So I spend a lot of kind of research on that main customer pain point, which is great because they're all public. So if your viewers are building a business in any problem, maybe they want to, provide like better loans or like better tables, anything that's a product for individuals. They can just read through the reviews of competitors and existing incumbents and go through all those complaints. And if they think they can solve those complaints better than someone else, that's probably going to be a pretty large business at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what they say is like when you solve a big problem, that's like $1 million business right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you find with the current business that you have? How do you find? Is it like? Do you think that you can like? Where's that business going? By the way, yeah. Let's just start from there. So where is your business going from here into the future?
Yeah. The way I've approached the business, and this has worked really well for myself. It may work well for some of your community as well. Is I'm growing it really slowly from a self-funding perspective. I like that because it gives me full control of the business. I don't have to raise external capital. And I've done both. They both have their pros and cons. I've been part of high growth tech prior, and you can. It allows you to make decisions at scale, provide items to consumers, get more feedback faster at larger scale, and provide a fundamentally better product and better service. But the downside there is, you've got less control. You're balancing kind of the customer problem with investor demands, and so that can be tough for some founders. So I like kind of self-funding it, growing it really slowly, and then I spend about half my week on advisory with different businesses. And the main focus for myself prior to kind of this next stage is getting as much customer feedback as possible, and I actually find it's a pretty easy time for people building a business to get feedback, and you slowly build distribution in the back end. But we get a lot of responses to our newsletter where people say, hey, this is actually what I had trouble with, or I'd love to rank these products next because I'm looking at purchasing a hot water tank. What's a lower emission hot water tank, or like heating options for my home or AC options for my home. These are the options that are available in my area. How would you rank them? That's something where the more feedback I can capture, I know how to prioritize our resources, and then we can provide services to customers that actually work.
That's right.
And if you can iterate in a way where it's lower cost, lower risk, that is actually a key advantage. Because one thing I find with a lot of friends starting businesses, and I'd be interested if you see this in your community as well, is that people don't have to take on as much risk as they think. Let's imagine you're super passionate about a problem. There are lots of low risk ways to test that. You can even spool up an app in a couple days or a week now. There are a lot of AI tools that will let you do that. You can set up a landing page in a couple hours and see if you actually get inbounds or responses, because you're showing everyone a customer need. Is it resonating with them? If the answer is no, then it's a good thing you didn't quit your job or invest a bunch of money into it. It's really low cost to test ideas nowadays. Or even the one that I always like that I've seen people do is, if you're passionate about a problem and you think it's a real problem, there are probably companies that exist in that kind of vertical.
That's right.
Why not try working for them and learning from them for a couple months or years, and then you probably worst case you understand the problem better, and you can build a really competitive business in whatever kind of niche is within that, or you decide that the problem I thought was here is actually already solved, or I didn't articulate it correctly. It's a different way. I think that's all very valuable.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you think that you need money to start a business? Because a lot of people think that you need like $1 million to start a business. But the truth is, like, sometimes you don't need to. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, I agree with that fully.
Yeah.
And I think that gets better and better every day, where the costs of a lot of what you need to
Oh, yeah.
start a business continue to decline.
That's right.
You even think of the original tech businesses, where they had to also solve they weren't using AWS or Azure, and they
Yeah.
had to like solve all their hardware architecture at the same time that they were building a business
Yeah.
for consumers.
That's right.
Now you can outsource all that. You can outsource your taxes. You can outsource your website
That's right.
design.
Yeah.
You can outsource pretty much any major vertical you can think of. You can outsource, or you can create something for really low cost with tools that are provided.
That's true.
And I think, that's a really exciting thing for people that want to try something, whether it's, on the side for a couple $100,
Yeah.
or they want to just, experiment over time. There are lots of low cost ways to do that now, which is great, because that shouldn't be your main barrier to starting something, or at least testing if an idea makes sense.
That's right. Yeah, because like nowadays, like social media is like very, very accessible to everyone, right? So you basically don't need like a lot of money to start your own company, because like
Yeah.
you get a phone, record it, and you can search online if like things that you need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this your full time right now?
No, so it's I spend kind of 2-3 days on it, and then 2-3 days doing advisory. Most of the advisories with a company called Fueled.
Okay.
So a equipment platform, pretty much a digitally enabled Ritchie Brothers, where it allows companies in large industries, so
That's
power, oil and gas, agriculture, buy and sell used equipment. Which is kind of a really interesting problem, because you think about all these companies, they end up with a lot of equipment that they're not using anymore, or it was for a project that they thought they were going to get build, and they canceled, or they had to shut it down because it wasn't economic, or suddenly they need a lot of equipment because they're pulling forward development plans. That creates a lot of friction where you often don't have the equipment you need. So there's a ton of value, both economic and even environmental, in the circular economy, where instead of buying something net new, you're using something from someone else, a piece of equipment. Picture a generator, for example. Where you might just have a bunch dormant that unlocks your capital.
That's right.
And then it provides a lower cost option for someone else that needs that in their operations.
That's true.
So that's a really cool company that offers kind of that platform, where a couple several years ago, it was historically auction services, or that equipment would just sit dormant. So I spend a lot of time, kind of building that business with them as well. Yeah.
I see. Well, yeah, because like the reason why I asked if you full time with this one, because like you mentioned a while ago that you should have like your full time job when you're running like a side business, right? I think that's what you meant by that. It's really nice to have that like sustainable income to support your business. And a lot of people just nowadays is just like in social media they're showing is like, hey, if you wanted to pursue your dreams and goals in life, just like quit your job and then start a business. I don't think that's a very smart one, guys.
No, I think that creates a lot of stress. I think it also forces shorter term thinking, which probably isn't great. If you're trying to build a business that has longevity, even if you're trying to build a career that has longevity, you're going to be better served if you aren't stressed about,
that's true.
okay,
I believe
the
that.
day-to-day bill, because suddenly you're going to have to things.
Absolutely.
You're going to say, okay, I'm going to pick like a worse long-term provider because I got to save this much this month. Or I'm going to service a client that isn't really a long-term fit for the business, but I need the money like this month. You've probably faced those decisions in building your business.
Exactly,
and there's always lots of work available, but it's not often work that's in the long-term interest of yourself or the company you're building, and you don't want to be in a position where you have to take it just because you've rushed things haven't tested things. So being able to make long-term decisions, I think that equips people much better, whether they're doing they're starting or testing things part-time, or they've got something they work on in the evenings for a few years while working. There are lots of ways to reduce that risk.
Exactly. So like there's like I said, a misconception of the internet guru, you say, that like if you guys have a dream and goals in life, just go for it, quit your job and never come back, right? But it's actually hard. It's not that easy. So you should be like looking at like keeping your job while you're like building this company to maybe an empire one day, right?
Yeah.
What was your main struggle with your company? Having said that, it's like I know sometimes like clients, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But I think what was yours, if there was any in the past, right? If you struggle with your business or anything like that, would you mind sharing it?
Yeah, I think I'd say the main struggle that I face building this, and I think a lot of businesses face, is just how you make sure that you're maintaining momentum, like both for your like customers and partners. So there's an external component.
That's right.
But I'd say more so if you're building something, especially if you're doing it solo, it's more important to maintain that momentum internally, and to understand that, okay, you are making progress every day, week, month, year. Because I think it's very easy when you're building things, especially if you're not part of a large team, to say, okay, what progress am I actually, seeing?
That's right.
And it's easy to see, especially solo entrepreneurs, see them get discouraged because they feel like, okay, I've been producing this thing for so long, or I've been making this for so long, or I've been pushing this product for so long that they're, I'm not confident that there's been, incremental improvement or incremental awareness, even though there is. Now, I think the flip side of that is if you're not seeing any type of progress, but you're not iterating either, then maybe you are spending time on the wrong thing.
That's right. That's true.
So there is a monitoring there that's required. But I think being realistic with, okay, I want to somehow show myself that there's momentum and progress taking place, so that you continue to energize yourself to spend more time on the business, while being aware that these things take time. Like I always like looking at the growth curves or adoption curves of kind of major tech products, or businesses, or even like podcasts are a great example, where you'll look at a lot of the growth curves of the podcasts that you really like, and the first year, 2, 3 years, 4 years,
It's
5
nothing,
years, they were kind of just putting it into the void.
Exactly.
But what they were actually doing is, they were honing their craft, they were building up a loyal audience, they were building up a backlog of content that's available for their new customers. But being aware that that kind of growth rate feels like nothing in the early days or years or months is super valuable for anyone. So I think that's the thing that probably everyone struggles with.
I see. Yeah, because like the story of the Chinese bamboo tree.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you work on, like, keep watering the plant. You keep watering for years and years and nothing happens. But like after that 4 or 5 years, you'll have like that 30-foot, bamboo tree out of the blue, right? So it's the same thing with business. It's like you have to really work on your business to the point that you have to like be patient with your business. Otherwise, it's not gonna grow, right? Because like running a business is not that easy. It's very hard. You know that. I know that. How long have you been running your business for again, Mark?
So the current one I started about 5 months ago.
Just 5 months ago.
So still nice and early. We'll have to circle back in a year or 2 years, and I'm sure I'll have lots more of those pain points for
exactly.
you.
Yeah, but I mean, like currently, right now, I think when you start a business, it's just so difficult. And like doing it alone, it's even like harder, right? Because eventually you're gonna have your own team. You're gonna have like this, employees of yours in the future. And that's like a different challenge than you have right now when you're doing on your own, right? And you also do like some speaking at the events, right? It's like trying to motivate people. Is that correct?
Yeah, I speak at a couple different tech conferences, a couple different business panels.
I see.
A lot of it ends up being finance focused or environmental focused, because that's a lot of what my background is. I don't know if they're overly motivating per se, but that's kind of where my area of expertise is.
I
So
see.
spend a lot of stuff on that. Particularly kind of data for large industry as well. That's where I spent a lot of my career.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about like finances.
Yeah.
And what's the main reason why people struggle when it comes to financing?
Yeah, it's
Their finances, yeah.
Yeah, it's are you interested more in kind of like personal finance or
I
business
think so.
finance?
Well, you're more in that, right? In the personal one?
Yeah, well, I've done both in my
Both?
career, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the personal one.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate into that if
Yeah.
we talk about the personal finances.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about like what's the main struggle of the people that comes to you and say like, hey, I'm struggling in this area and that area and stuff like this when it comes to finances.
Yeah, it's a great question. Like I'd say personal finances are tough to start with because people, and this is very true for Canadians, is financial literacy is unfortunately very low. And, that's probably a failure from kind of an education system standpoint.
Okay, I see.
Where you think about that, like you're not really taught taxes in school.
No, not really, yeah.
There's a bit of budgeting, but not much. You're not taught a lot about financial products, how to use them, and even how to access a lot of the financial benefits that Canadians are afforded. Like I'd say one of the wild things is like not many people know that, okay, if you have no income, you should still be filing a tax filing in Canada.
Exactly.
Because that's how the government actually delivers a lot of the support programs. But again, not a lot of people know that. And unfortunately, like a lot of funding for kind of tax prep has been cut recently. Like the government used to support people in tax education. That's been cut back recently. And so, you have these people that don't know how to access programs, but at the same time, they see a lot of programs announced, so they probably just assume they aren't eligible. So that's kind of one, is like people unfortunately start from like a very difficult place in terms of financial literacy. And then the second one is, I think, for a lot of us, similar to anything, is we're not as well organized as we'd like to believe with respect to our personal finances. So not only, do we have costs that, we may have forgotten about or we may not be planning for, but there are also like opportunities that we may not be aware of in our finances to reduce our costs. And we're not taking advantage of these on a daily basis. And the nice thing is tech is improving that. So I spent a chunk of my career kind of helping grow Neo Financial, which provides digital products. It's a Canadian fintech, provides digital financial products to consumers. And a lot of our time was spent, how do we show everyone this is how much they're spending on this category a month? These are recurring fees. Like maybe you want to cancel some of these subscriptions and you've just forgot about them. This is how much you're spending on food. Like maybe you thought it was actually way less in your budget, because a lot of these things can creep up on people.
Yeah, that's right.
So that kind of data and organizational component is a big part of it. And then the third one is a lot of people aren't actually using the products that would be best for them. And like, unfortunately, part of this is just, the most expensive products can probably pay more to acquire you as a customer, which is kind of a wild thing for financial services. So, if there are companies out there and they're advertising to you all the time, they're probably able to do that because you're paying a lot on their products. And this is actually something we found at Neo Financial is a lot of the incumbent banks, because their bank accounts had a lot more fees than ours associated with them, they were able to pay more to acquire a customer, which that becomes, a very difficult incentive and landscape for the customer to battle with, because they're like, I'm I'm seeing the RBC logo all the time or the TD
Yeah,
logo all the
that's
time.
right, yeah.
And the reason is because, they're likely charging you more than a Neo or a Coho or even a Wealthsimple would. Some of these fintechs that have lower fees on their products. But the fact they're charging you more allows them to, advertise more, give more giveaways to try to acquire you as a customer. So that's kind of the last one where you're fighting a lot of incentives where sort of the products that may be the least useful for you as an individual are the ones that you're seeing the most and you often end up in, which is unfortunate. That just adds another layer of cost and complexity.
I see.
Yeah.
So that's when you come in and then kind of like educate the clients and how they can manage their finances.
Yeah, so I used to spend a lot of time with some of the kind of debt counseling organizations where it was walking them through, okay, here are ways that you can find lower cost products.
Okay.
Here are things that you can be aware of to access. Here are things that you should be aware of with the products that you currently have. Even in terms of fees that people may not be aware of, like overdraft fees, for example. Like some people will be able to eliminate them by aggregating a lot of their money in a given account. You take a look at ATM fees. Not a lot of people know that if you go to an ATM that's not your bank, you have an added fee charged on it. All sorts of stuff like that can just add up to make a real difference, especially for those kind of lower income brackets that are on the margin. So that's something that I was always personally passionate about and used to spend a lot of time kind of trying to educate individuals and orgs to reduce that financial burden. Yeah.
So what's going to happen is like, for example, if I was the client, so I give you all this information to you, or do you have to have like access to my accounts to see all my finances?
I'd mostly just do, broad recommendations on a personal level.
Okay.
Like there are lots of, wealth planners, coaches, advisors that are free. So like some of the trustee organizations will provide free advice if you go in. So I historically, recommend a list of those after walking clients through like, okay, here are the things where you're likely like losing money as an individual. And then from an individual standpoint, like Canadians can go in and, talk to those trustees or advisors, some of those certified financial planners if they feel that's a fit. But there's so much you can do, especially with tech where it is nowadays,
that's right.
without having to do that. Like there are a lot of tools now, like a bunch of budgeting tools as well, where you can look at your finances. You don't have to talk to anyone. You can look through, okay, like here are my expenses. Here are things I can reduce. There are lots of like no fee products that you can find actively without talking to anyone. Even a lot of those simple switches can put people in a better position. And they don't have to, share their data with people, have some sort of session or anything like that. Because like people are busy. And like a good chunk of this is one of the tough things too, and why problems compound in personal finance is because if you're working, 2-3 jobs for your family, you probably don't have time to make an appointment during the day with BMO to ask them, why you got charged extra fees.
Exactly.
So these problems compound. So the earlier you can catch them, and then some of these like simple preemptive steps, super valuable, really helpful to families and Canadians. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that happened to me with BMO before, where I get charged with amount that like service fee that I did not know about, and then I went to their I went to BMO, and they were like, oh yeah, this happens, this and this, and then I can give you like a partial of your money back. That's right. Just like like you said a while ago, sometimes people don't have the time to go there. That's why you're here to help them out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's awesome.
And I can send them. Like we did a bunch of, and I'm happy to share this kind of in the podcast notes. Maybe the best place is we did a bunch of free articles that we put together, some in partnership with some of these kind of debt advisory organizations, some just ourselves from our team on, hey, here are immediate ways to improve your finances. So lower fee products, higher interest on your savings, removing some of the fees that are hitting you.
That's right.
I can share some of those because I think those are just good for people to read.
Absolutely.
Especially when it's like from entities that aren't directly profiting off the status quo.
That's right. Yeah.
Because those ones aren't going to show you any type of change or opportunity.
So send me those information, and I can just like link link it down to this podcast, guys, so that you can just check it out and stuff like that. Is there any advice that you wanted to share to the audience, to the people that are watching us, that maybe can help their business grow and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think there are a couple different things that are worth sharing. I'd say the first one that I've always found is people are more willing to help you than you'd expect. Especially if it's a problem that you're passionate about, or
That's
just
right.
an interesting problem in general. And I think a lot of people assume that's not the case, so they never spend the time, reaching out for help or asking questions. And there are a lot of, mentors in industry, mentors in the city and business community that are happy to help other people start a business, avoid pitfalls that they had themselves.
Right.
So that's kind of the first one is, I definitely recommend reaching out. And then the second one kind of goes back to our earlier discussion, where you can often do things and significantly minimize the risk associated with them. And I think that's one thing where there's a lot of kind of promotional stuff, and there's sort of a love of entrepreneurship, which I think is good because it gets businesses built, it gets people excited, it finances them. But I think a lot of it can really romanticize how hard it fundamentally is to build a business, and you can do a lot and try a lot of things by reducing your risk significantly. Even a good example is with a lot of traditional businesses, you don't have to put down a lot of capital to see if it's working. So you take something like, here's a really simple example. Let's say you wanted to buy a convenience store or a gas station. What the entrepreneurship books may tell you is, okay, you need to go all in, you need to take a personal guarantee, and you need to provide them with a loan, and you need to give everything to that business. 9 times out of 10, when you talk to that existing owner, they will probably let you, especially if they're already close to retirement, they will probably let you lease the business for a bit if they can keep it up for sale to other potential entities. That's the type of thing where you could lease it. You could structure a lease and a ROFR. So if another buyer comes in, you get a right of first refusal on that offer. That's something where, it doesn't cost you too much. You're buying a hard business. And this could be true of construction, any business that you're looking at starting or purchasing or being involved in. So that lets you test it. If the business is great, you probably exercise your purchase option. If it isn't, you've only spent several months of a lease versus buying an entire business for something you didn't actually enjoy. And there are lots of kind of structuring nuances where I'd say that people either don't do them to reduce their risk just because they're not aware, or two, they get kind of too excited and they feel like, okay, I've got to be all in for this to work, and I need a spear against my back. But it's not clear to me that you're going to make better decisions just by taking on more risk. I don't think that's clear or necessarily proven. I think that can force people to make shorter term decisions.
Oh yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, when starting a business, you need to be calculated risk. You have to have calculated risk, and you're gonna have to seek for help, guys. Because people think that they're having difficulties to ask somebody who is successful, right? And then just ask the questions to grow their business because of hey, is this person even gonna talk to me and stuff like that? So just kind of remove it, guys, and then be I need this information right now. Who's the right person that I need to talk to.
Yeah.
If you need financial, advisory and stuff like that, Mark is here to help you, right? If you guys need photo and video, I mean, this Mark can help you, right? But again, what you're saying a while ago is just like go seek for help if you need it.
Yeah.
Right? And to grow your business, absolutely. Like have a calculated risk and don't quit your job yet until, while you're running this business. So
yeah. And then there's a lot of good information and data on that. Twitter and LinkedIn are actually great where you can just read through other entrepreneurs' stories, like especially if they're building in public, like good ones and bad ones. And you can,
I believe that,
can learn a lot more than you could have a decade or two ago, for sure.
That's true, yeah. And I mean, like Google is open book, so you can just search it and then you get all the information you need. I think the one that's lacking people is like the ability to just push it. Or moving forward, right? Because like they're always scared. They said like we don't have like enough money to start a business and stuff like that. It's like it's like Google is open book, so you can get all the information you need over there to grow your business or even start your business. I think that's the hardest part for most people. It's like to start. And is there any advice that you can give to the people who is like afraid to start their business because of like maybe something that could fail in the future,
I think the advice I'd give there is, and this is true for their career as well, is especially if you minimize those financial risks, failure is actually way less risky from a long-term career and personal perspective than I think people are made to believe. Those financial risks are real, so this is assuming you've mitigated those, which are very achievable. You can test things, you can set up structures.
Exactly.
But if you think about, okay, I'm going to go work for this small startup that's solving a problem I'm really passionate about, or I'm going to build one myself. If you think about your career in 2 years, 3 years, you've probably got way more learnings there than you would have at kind of a legacy company that's moving a lot slower. So you're probably, smarter, more. You're suddenly a more like interesting and useful hire for whether it's a similar new company or a legacy one. So you've actually put yourself ahead by taking more risk. And I think the other thing too is a lot of people by taking risk end up riding like kind of career waves that are tough to see from the onset but are more problem oriented. So if you're super passionate about something because it's just come into existence. So maybe you want to use AI in media and that's your passion. Spending a lot of time on that, even if it's in kind of high risk career or business opportunities, probably isn't a terrible idea because the fact you're passionate about it probably means there are thousands or millions of other people that are passionate about it, and it's probably a large trend that you're just learning faster about. And this is kind of similar to big businesses that you've seen in lots of kind of trends and tech get built is someone will say, okay, I'm taking on a bunch of risk because I'm starting this computer company. It's so interesting. And it's just a function of, it is really interesting and it is going to make a huge change to people's lives. And, by starting it, even the individuals that spent time like building, ones that failed, they just become way more knowledgeable of a rapidly growing industry, which is likely going to be long-term more beneficial financially than if they just had decided to not follow that passion.
Exactly. I think that's the worst part. It's like you're passionate about something, but you don't want to push it because of this kind of, this could be like something that could happen in the future that could, destroy your passion or stuff like that.
No, I think you're exactly right. And maintaining that passion is key for sure. Because
like when you're passionate about something, you just keep moving, right? It's not about like, I know a lot of people thinking is like, okay, I will start the business and make money off of this business. Obviously, this is like the outcome of your efforts and stuff like that, right? But it's not always the reason why you're pushing your business. Because if it is, then you're gonna have a problem with it because like you're gonna get burned out in the end, right? So that's why it's like if you want to start a business, make sure you guys are passionate about it. Otherwise, you're not gonna last long in this industry. Especially if you just wanted to earn money because like hey, people are making money off of this business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching our podcast. I think we got a pretty good insight of like Mark's business over here and some pretty good advices as well. Any last word that you wanted to say to our audience, Mark, before we close this podcast?
Just like to thank you for the time, thank them for listening. I can be found at Mark Le Dain at LinkedIn,
There we go.
Le Dain Mark at Twitter, and then Emissions Decisions on Substack is probably the other great place to kind of read some of what we've been talking about.
Yes, I'll put all the links down below so you guys can just take a look at what Mark has to offer. I'm pretty sure if you guys are struggling financing, and then especially the mission and decisions company that Mark runs, go check him out. I'm pretty sure he will help you with all he can.
Great.
Yeah,
Will do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for watching the podcast. If you guys like this podcast, please share. And if you guys are watching this to the actual podcast, Apple Podcast, please subscribe to our channel so that we can help this community grow. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Thank you so much, Mark.
Great. Thanks, my friend.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.